Howdy. So today Rogue is being added to Marvel Rivals. So I just figured I want to talk about Rogue. And yesterday I talked about how what kind of changes I would make to the X-Men, the mutant power system, and I don't think I did a very good job of explaining the specifics. So I figured I would use Rogue as an example, because and trying to cover all of the original ones in one video would probably be a bit much. So we'll just use her. It's topical as well, which is always good. So Rogue's base power set is really good. It's she can touch somebody, it drains them of like memories, powers, and skills, giving her to them temporarily, or if she does it for long enough, kind of arbitrarily, honestly, she gets them all. I mean, really, that's only happened like once, I think, with Carol Danvers, Captain Marvel. And so what's the difference? What's the difference between her touching somebody and getting the powers temporarily versus touching them and getting them forever? And how is the difference for memories? As I understand, the memories get a little integrated to a higher degree, and that sticks around for longer. Or, the specifics aren't really important. It's a really good power. Creates a lot of opportunities for interesting storylines. She absorbs somebody else, she thinks it's them, or, the lethality of the individual touch can vary over time or whatever. But it's a good, solid powers. What would this look like underneath my modified system? Just to go over it again, so we're going to have all mutants have three traits that they all have in common. All of them have an extra-dimensional plane that they have access to, a physical outward mutation that, it can be as minor as, for instance, Rogue. She's got white hair at the front of her head, and she doesn't have to dye that. It's just like that. It's never explained, So this part of her mutation, makes sense. And then some sort of psychic ability that allows their power to actually work. And what do I mean by psychic? So this will go larger. I'll expound upon this later. I kind of have this idea, because I love world building. I have this idea of a kind of like, like there's Absolute DC that's coming out, and then there's Ultimate Marvel. I was like, oh, what would I do if I could create one? So I have this idea of one. I'll probably make a video about that either tomorrow or sometime this week. But in the system, high energy wavelengths bridge between real science and magic. That's how like gamma stuff works. So psychic energy is part of that high energy wavelengths that cross the boundaries between magic and science. It's on that barrier, and it covers all sorts of mental abilities. It tracks with those. So in Rogue's case, let's go over each of those abilities, each of those mutations individually, and then we'll talk about how they express themselves as a power set and what stories, opportunities those bring about. So physical mutation, she's got white hair at the front of her head. Doesn't really mean anything else. It's just a small visual signifier. You can do other stuff, like maybe like because she's got to touch people to absorb their abilities, maybe your skin is just unnaturally smooth without any blemish at all. You know, like not even like fingerprints. You know, something just they're called the uncanny X-Men. Make them a little bit uncanny. You know, not enough to be freaky about it. No, unless you want to be freaky about it. I know you guys. But just just a little bit. So then her psychic ability is the actual mechanism of she touches you, her subconscious mind interacts with the conscious mind, and then searches the mind of the person that she's touching to find stuff that would be useful to Rogue in the moment. So, you know, we'll use Wolverine as an example. So let's say she fell down and broke her leg. She touches Wolverine. Her unconscious goes, oh, her conscious mind is in pain because of this leg. She's touching this person. We're going to look for healing stuff. Oh, he's got a regeneration factor? Sweet, we'll take that. But other instances, say her main problem is, oh, I need to field strip this M1 Garand. Wolverine fought in World War II. She touches him. Instead of grabbing the healing factor, maybe he grabs it anyway, because who doesn't love a healing factor? But it's mostly looking for, oh, we'll go for this information in particular, grab that, pull it out, and maybe memories associated with that. This is an imprecise kind of shotgun ability, you know? She's grabbing random stuff, but it's aimed at, stuff that she would want. She's not grabbing, how does he make a really good burrito? It's not looking for that. Or, he's really into Japan, so he's not grabbing how to make sushi, or how to speak Japanese, because he can speak Japanese. But it's looking for useful abilities, and since superpowers are almost always useful, especially since she's mostly grabbing those in combat scenarios, it's going to look for those first. One limitation I will put upon this that I think actually makes it more interesting is that she can't grab other psychic abilities. So, what this to fully explain why I put that in, I kind of need to explain the dimensional thing first. So, what her dimension is a expanding kind of flesh thing. So, it's like when she touches people, she's actually pulling out random pieces, not just from the memory, but also of their body to copy their DNA. So she is grabbing, some blood or a couple nerve clusters, which is why your touch is physically draining. She's not, drawing out life energy, as it were. She's actually teleporting random portions of the person's body into her dimensional field. This is usually not enough to be lethal, but as I'm sure you can imagine, having random parts of your body teleported out of you is not pleasant and can be lethal. But, most of the time, if she's just grabbing some blood, maybe a tissue sample, it's not going to kill you. Unless she happens to grab something that will kill you. So it's kind of random. This could be, fixed through training, as I imagine. But that's part of the story potential. So her dimensional ability, she teleports the stuff in there, and then it's basically like a SimCity type deal. It uses the information and it stores it, and it tries to build out this kind of fleshy, field using all the different abilities and powers that she's accumulated to try to create a self-sustaining, self-propagating meat garden, kind of. And she's drawing from that when she recalls the abilities, because now instead of just so she touches somebody, she gains a burst of their ability, and then it kind of settles down in the background that she can then pull it up later to a much lesser degree. If you're familiar with the Osmosians from Ben 10, think like that. Except I'm going to go for more of she gets like 20% of the ability. But why is it lesser? Because she's using her psychic abilities to pull those abilities and memories out from her dimensional field into her body. So now, say she touches a couple different mutants, and then she can pull out up to 5 abilities. Oh, now she's at 100%. She can pull those out, which creates a lot of interesting smaller power sets. But it's not so much that, say she's on, we just add her to the classic X-Men team and she has touched each of them. Now she's not just, those people all together. She's not so powerful that she overshadows everyone else because she has eye blasts like Cyclops, but they're about a fifth as powerful. She's, flexible and can spin around like Beast, but not quite as much. She has wings like Angel, but she's not quite as fast. An all-arounder, except for the psychic abilities. And basically what for mutants or other beings whose primary thing that she's gaining is some sort of psychic ability, basically what this does is, depending on the strength of the psychic, she's adding maximum percentage points. So, say there's a couple different psychic. So instead of her psychic potential is at 100, and then she touches a mid-tier psychic that gives her another 25. So now she can have she can pull that ability, but instead of taking away, it adds on. So now she can have additional, or even putting more power into an individual ability. I wouldn't be too upset with that. Though I do think if she's adding on to an ability, it should be more each 20% thing. If she wants to use Cyclops at a 40, she's basically got to spend at a 2-to-1 ratio, and then at a 3-to-1, and then at a 4-to-1, so on, so that it's not efficient for her to do that, so that she doesn't overshadow, and so that so Rogue copying Cyclops doesn't mean Cyclops doesn't need to be there anymore, because that's no fun, because that just overshadows the other characters. But with this system, it's more about versatility and I just think that would work better. So that's her base set of abilities. What's the story potential? How does this grow over time? I think the main way you can do a couple things with this. I think the main one would be as she's touching people, gradually becomes more intelligent because she's drawing this intelligence out of people. So what happens when she goes from a relatively averagely intelligent girl to this omni-skilled person? I think that's a really interesting subject. And the she's grabbing so one thing that happens in the comics that you can also explore here is, say she touches Gambit's ex-girlfriend, and because she likes Gambit, her subconscious is going to grab memories and things that Gambit liked about his ex-girlfriend and incorporate them into her. You know, how does that affect her relationships? How does that work, going forward? I think that would be really interesting. Um, what happens if one like particular interaction I think would be really interesting would be if you have a separate telepath that could go in to her psychic abilities and boost them, like a Professor X. Because like if she drains Professor X, Professor X is pretty powerful, so maybe she gets 40 from him. But she can't do that again. She's got him once. There's no reason for her to go in again. I think all that would do is give her his base ability, like it would boost her up to it. So like say, if Professor X is, he's got a 200% psychic ability, she grabs it, she gets 40% psychic, so she can get an extra 2 power slots, as it were. But her touching Professor X doesn't give her another 40% on top of that. It just temporarily boosts her up to his full psychic potential. So then she would get the 200%, and then she can get, 10 slots temporarily instead of the 2 that she would get at base. But then Professor X gets knocked out because of the touch or potentially dies, so she's not going to want to do that. But what happens if Professor X goes in behind, and pushes her psychic abilities with his own psychic abilities? So now she's getting not only the 40 she took from him originally, but also this additional 200. So now she's got 12 power slots. Ooh, that's pretty good. So now she can become like this crazy. She's got all this extra ability. So if you have like a bunch of them, like we got Professor X, we got Emma Frost, we got the Phoenix, and we got Psylocke, and whatever other mutants like Mesmero's around, whoever. You can bring all of them in, and now she's like, oh, I have thousands in there, and I can just spend a bunch, and now I can pull out Carol Danvers and the Hulk and all these others all at the same time, and now I'm gonna go fight Thor, and you could power them up like that. There's just a big hoorah, because X-Men, like nobody in the traditional lineup. It's really like this like big power brawler, So Rogue could do that, but you also get this power of friendship thing because it requires all these other people to power her up, and that could be a really cool moment, like maybe she's fighting Apocalypse or something, and like Apocalypse is all about the survival of the fittest, and then you have Rogue going, oh, I can defeat you with the power of all my friends and the psychic abilities manifest within me, and then she can use that to defeat him. So it's kind of this like, oh, the strength of a bunch of weaker, small people all working together can defeat the big, strong guy by himself. It's a cool thing. It's a classic tale as old as time. As it's fun. Or you could even go with if you want to put I kind of have the idea of having her basically be the Krakoan military, like just by herself. So, like, say we're on this like alternate version of Krakoa, where that I would have in my setting, where it's like people can go there, and it's basically it's an island nation filled with mutants, and it's getting attacked by Sentinels. Like, you would want a formalized military, but you can't really standardize with mutants because they're all individualistic. So what if, but presumably, like, there's probably like millions of people that live there. Like, if you got like 1 million mutants, there's probably a significant amount of them that are psychics, but not like super powerful psychics. So you create this large underground bunker, and you put Rogue in there, and you all have the psychics focus on her at the same time, and then she can use a mixture of her own abilities and, like, say, multiple man or other ones to create an army of herself that she can all use to defend the island with. As like, oh, this Krakoan super weapon. And I think that'd be really cool, you know, or because you'd want to do, like, everyone loves a hero versus hero kind of battle. Those are always fun as, like, big events of, like, say the Avengers were attacking Krakoa for whatever reason. Like, say, the X-Men are on their like, oh, we don't like humans right now moment, and they send somebody that, like, they drop Hulk as a bomb, on Krakoa. Who's fighting him? Like, unless you got there's not a ton of, like, big brawler dudes. Like, they're usually, like, the villains. Like at least in their, like, normal lineup. Like, what do you got? Colossus. Colossus is never really portrayed as that crazy strong, at least not that I'm aware. Like, he's like pick up and throw car strong, not like smash mountains strong. There's degrees here. We're not going into full power scaling right now because that's not the point of this. We could later if you want. I'm not opposed to that, but I would like to, if I'm going to do versus matchups, it's probably going to be with my own versions of the characters, because especially with comics, it's like, which specific version do you mean? Like, Death Battle has this problem, like, it's super annoying when you go, like, which version do you mean? Because, like, if you want somebody in a comic book to be stronger than somebody else from basically anything, you can probably find something that'll imply that, and you can play word games. And that goes into, like, I could go on a whole tangent. I have a whole problem with the versus battles idea anyway, and if you want that, ask and I'll do that rant, because it's a rant that could definitely happen. And I like the idea, and like maybe if she, and so if she is doing this army thing, where she's this whole army by herself, like, what if she's looking for ways to boost her maximum amount of slots for powers, or even doubling up on power slots in some instances. She's copying like 10 different, like, size alteration things. I almost call them quirks, but this is not MHA. She's copying 10 different mutations all at once, so now she's can be 100 feet tall, and then she can clone herself, and they all have, weaker versions of Cyclops beams, because there's 5 of them. It doesn't really matter, and they're all huge, so they're more powerful anyway, so they're all blasting people, and it would be cool. I think that would be fun. Or you could play, like, oh, so she can have wings like Angel does, fly, but she's not very as fast as Angel because her wings aren't as big. But what's the interaction there if she uses Quicksilver's power at the same time? So now she can fly really quickly, like maybe even faster than Angel, because Quicksilver's really fast, but he can't fly. But then, she combines those two abilities, or even like, Angel, Quicksilver, Sunspot, and what's his name? Cannonball, something like that. Cannonball. I think it's Cannonball. Cannonbolt is Ben 10 guy. So he's fun too, and just big. Well, I didn't care for him. I think that Ghost Freak was cooler, and I don't like that I like that show, but the fact that, like, there's so many aliens and a lot of them are redundant. He's got like 10 different electricity aliens, but whatever. I digress. But that's kind of what I wanted to talk about. That's kind of like all the different like Rogue's an interesting has a really interesting power set, and I do feel that because there's not specifics, I like specifics. Because there's not specifics to her powers, you don't really know like what's the limits, where does it go, and one of the problems that I have with comics as opposed to like a lot of like shonen manga, like you get into shonen and like you get this really nice sense of progression, but superheroes are always going back to the status quo. And really, what I would like to do is create a universe, just through these conversations, where you get that sense of progression. Where you know, if this happens, it sticks around, and there's none of this time travel, multi-dimensional stuff. If somebody's dead, they stay dead. And if somebody gains this cool superpower, they keep the cool temporary power buff and they get to keep going forward with it. And unless they lose it for other story reasons, and like keep it grounded, keep it on Earth, you know, the aliens are coming to us. We're not going to the aliens. The Skrulls are invading. It's probably not an entire planet-wide effort. It's probably like one battleship that crash landed onto the Earth, and now they're trying to take over the Earth to try to signal home, but they're doing it maliciously. Because people don't understand scale at all. So there's 8 billion people on the planet right now, and we're not a interplanetary species, right? So the Skrulls, being an interplanetary species, they're, even if they only occupy one planet, but they're still able to travel around. There's probably like 20 billion Skrulls just on their planet, even if it's lightly populated, just because that's how many people you would need. Because, as you get more technologically advanced, you can support a higher and higher population density, cheaply. And, I watched a video talking about, what the percentage of humans that have ever lived are alive right now. And they came to the whole video was like, there's been roughly, 110 billion humans that have ever lived, and roughly, 8% of those are alive right now. Back in World War II, there was only about 2 billion people, and we've quadrupled that just because of some technological advancements over the last less than 100 years. We're going through some shrinkage right now in some areas, and it's probably not as high as we think it is because China is misreporting stuff, and who knows if the counts are accurate in Africa. I have no idea. But they're I've seen something China could straight up be missing half of what they say they have. Because this isn't really a political channel. I don't plan on doing politics. I'll probably mention it at times because you can't avoid it at a certain point. But it's never going to be the focus. The focus is going to be on entertainment because the world sucks enough already. But I'll leave it there. If you like this, like, comment, subscribe, those YouTubery things, If you want me to expound on any particular point, ask and you shall receive. Half of the reason I'm doing this is just I have no one to talk to about this at all, and I don't really know how to make friends, so I'm just kind of screaming into the void about it. Maybe I should change my channel name to that. Maybe. Anyway, I'll leave it there. You know, I'm trying to lose some weight too. You know, get a stand probably too. I got my. I'll leave it after this, but I got my phone. It's leaning against a cup and is on top of two remotes to create like a pseudo stand. Yesterday I was just kind of holding it the whole time, but then my arms were getting tired because I'm holding it, trying to hold it still the whole time. So this is better, I think. You know, I'm at home instead of at work. You know, I mean, I have breaks at work, so I'm not like gonna get in trouble or anything. But you know, I can do it at home. I could do it at work if I have time. I didn't today, but I wanted to get this out there anyway. Anyway, you know,